Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. I'm one of your two hosts, Noor Kyle.
And I'm the other one of your two hosts, Mushtaq Ali.
Yeah, and we have some friends joining us this evening. There may be some trickling in. We understand that this is our American switch out of daylight savings time. Most folks have done it already, and yet it still discombobulates us all. That's just how it goes. So, um, I guess we have a limited amount of announcements. We have begun our virtual retreat for this year. That's exciting because it's starting up officially on Monday. We've just had our intro meeting and it went really well. We have an amazing crew this year that I'm very excited to spend time with. If you haven't joined us yet, you have probably about 24 hours before I shut the registration down for this year. You can always join us next year. It is our intention to make this an annual experience, and we look forward to having you either now or in the future. So there's that. Anything else? Oh, if you want to register for that, we will have a link in the description down below for you to check out. Anything else?
Come see us in Sweden.
Yeah. So we do also have our virtual retreat in person coming up.
Virtual
Let
retreat in
me
person.
rephrase that. We have our in-person retreat coming up in Sweden of May of 2023. We have not officially opened that up for registration yet, but you can always send us a note via email, preferably, if you are feeling interested in that and looking to know a little bit more about that. But we will be releasing an official landing page to register for that and pay the fee for that probably within the next couple weeks or so, within the month for sure. um I think we want to keep it short there.
Yeah,
And
the only
with
thing we can
no
say about it is it's going to be a small, intimate group. We're keeping the price really low so that it will not overburden people in this time of monetary strife. So we'd love to have you. It's going to be a week of doing some really serious work and having massive amounts of fun.
Yes. All right. So for this evening, however, we are going to be continuing the conversation we began 2 weeks ago with our discussion of attention, and then last week intention. And today we are going to be discussing the third of this triad, presence. So where do we want to start with presence tonight, Mushtaq?
We like presents, Christmas presents, birthday presents. We like all the presents.
I made that joke today because I definitely love presents. He knows that. It's almost present season,
It's
and
always present season.
it does seem that way sometimes. I'm lucky. All right, but that's not the kind of presence we mean. We mean being present. Yes, a state of being rather than gifts given on opportune occasions. Say more about that.
Okay, well, this is one of the dichotomies that you find in Sufic philosophy, the idea of presence and absence. And those are considered, at least at the start, hal states. So you can be in a state of presence or you can be in a state of absence. And you'll tend to switch them back and forth, mostly absence. We do a lot of absence, not that much presence. But what we want is for presence to become a station rather than a state, someplace that we abide. And that's a little bit trickier. So, what is presence? How do you know if you're present? This is not a trick question, so feel free to answer. Noor, feel free.
Nancy, sure.
Yeah.
You know you're present if you're aware of your current situation.
Say more about current situation.
Well, your consciousness, your body, your environment.
That might be a start.
And sure.
Yes, you're in present when you're not, if I'm not thinking of the past or thinking of the future. And yes, as Nancy said, aware of, what's around me, table, the room, my body.
Yeah, that's a definite requisite for being present. So here's the thing, you can only be present in the now. What is the now? You know, we had old Baba Ram Dass saying, be here now, but he never really did explain what now is.
Anyone want to take a stab at the now? What does now mean?
Now is even the past and the present, because when we think of the past, we are thinking now. It's like,
How
and the
do you
future,
know, how
it's now.
do you discern between the past, the present, and the future?
Well, the past, it's like memories, but I have like emotion that, yeah, and but the emotion I have it now. Maybe the action was in the past, but the emotion I live it now.
Yeah, that's ideally, that's the case. Here's an interesting thought. Now has duration. We have scientifically measured how long now is. Isn't that weird?
Sure, he thinks it's weird. Yeah.
Yeah. But now is somewhere between 1.5 to 3 seconds. And when I found this out, I began testing it. And call me simple, but I have so much fun with this one. So I want you to put yourself in a state of being present, be in the room. And notice that here in the room is a particular experience. And you also have a memory of being in the room that just passed. So that frame of maybe 3 seconds, maybe less, depending on the person, is now. And everything else is either in the past or in the future. And the only place that we can be present is in the now. We cannot be present in the past. We cannot be present in the future. We can only remember the past and imagine the future. And when we start doing that, we lose our grip on the now, because we have to identify with the memories or the imaginations. So I want you all to try that. See if you can find the present moment for yourself and notice how there is this stream where what was the present moment has moved into the past, and you're still here, but it's going by you. It's almost like watching a movie. Can anybody get a sense of that? I'm probably not explaining it particularly well, but it's a good start.
It's like being on a continuum.
Yes.
You can't rest on a continuum. it's progressing, but you can't exceed that progression into the future. You can't rest on the past.
No. Yeah, if we could follow that continuum into the future, I'd have a winning lottery ticket by now. But so far, no luck.
Keep trying anyway.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks, Sheree. That's another great way to put it.
And being on that continuum, your presence is continually honed.
Yes.
You're always aware of the distractions that are trying to pull you back to the past or into the future. So that constant honing is it's just continuous.
Yeah.
Sorry about the noise.
Yeah. I think that's a cause and effect to noise, because a little bit earlier there were all of these fireworks going off for whatever reason, and now there are fire trucks going by. Cause and effect, past into present. So, there are two hadith. You all know what hadith are, right? The sayings of the Prophet Muhammad that are not part of the, yeah, and that have been reported and attested to and put under rigorous examination to make sure that they actually were what was said, and not just something that somebody made up because they thought it would sound good. And there are two of them that I really like. The first one is, man is asleep. He will not awaken until death. What do you think that means? Man is asleep. He will not awaken until death.
Yeah, Jonathan, what do you think?
Death of the conditioned experience.
That could be, because the other favorite hadith of mine is the Prophet said, die before you die. Which is, in some ways, I am pretty sure, an answer to the first saying. You can go through your whole life asleep. Then at the end of it, surprise, who knows what happens. But this idea of die before you die, let your, in this case, it's the ego death. It is the death of the conditioned self. And that allows you to experience what theoretically you would experience after death, which is a state of complete presence before your consciousness dissolves or you go wherever it is that people might go or anything like that. I have no information on this. You all know the story of the kids who came up to Mullah Nasruddin and asked him, Mullah, what happens after you die? And he said, I don't know. And they said, Mullah, I thought you were a holy man. And he said, yes, I am, but I'm not a dead holy man. So always remember that one when talking on these subjects. So in order for us to be present, something has to die. And that something is your attachment to and identification with the contents of your own ego, the things that you use to pull yourself away from that thin slice of time that is the present moment. So pull yourself back into the present moment. We're sitting here and we're going, oh my God, I'm in the present moment. And the moment you think that, that goes into the past. And so you can't think about that. And then you go, yeah, I'm a little bit hungry. I didn't eat much today. I fasted until almost 3 o'clock. And then you realize, lost the present moment again, but I'm hungry. And there it goes. And the ability to stay in that thin slice of time is not very strong at first. So we have tricks that allow us to be in that thin slice of time. The first trick is, sorry, a big message just flashed on my screen from my email. Speaking of presents, Donald Trump wants me to send him Christmas presents. Yeah. And that pulled me right out of the present moment. So the first trick is breath. The great teacher Bahauddin Naqshband said, our method is founded in breath. And that's a true thing. So by allowing a part of our consciousness to center on our breath, that can help pin us to the present moment, because we can only breathe in present time. You cannot breathe by memory, and you cannot breathe through imagination. You're kind of stuck right here, right now with your breath. It's like magic. It's almost as if it were designed that way. So take a moment and just let yourself be in your breath and be present at the same time. And that can be tricky too, because being in your breath is to invite sleep. Your ego goes, oh, wait, this fool is in his breath. He's going to wake up. Here, let me sing you a quick lullaby so you go back to sleep. Here, think of all these wonderful things that you could be thinking of instead of paying attention to your breath. And you go back to sleep.
Yeah. Isn't this relaxing? We could just chill out now.
Yeah.
Drift away.
Yeah. Chant a few sacred sounds. Think of mandalas. And there you go. And this gets us to a real part of the problem. At first, the present moment seems boring. Have you noticed that? There's not a lot of entertainment going on in the present moment. You cannot watch your daytime soap opera or your telenovela or whatever you'd like in the present moment. We just lost somebody.
Yeah, Muhammad fell off. I don't know if it was like
Probably boredom.
Or...
Yeah. This is a boring subject. This is not exciting. I thought about how can I make this subject exciting and engaging? And the answer is, you can't.
This isn't about entertainment. This isn't about flashbang, shiny things. You know how I love talking about the shiny things and the being distracted by them, but this is one of those contexts in which we are actively resisting the shiny things. Jonathan.
No, I don't know if I agree with you with that statement of the present moment experience is boring. That's not been my experience of it. It's, in fact, if there's one thing that it isn't, it's not boring. It might not be a wow moment, but it's not boring.
In
It's
comparison
refreshing.
to what people usually do, it's usually described as boring. Now, I realize you're a
Yeah.
contrarian, so you're going to not be bored just because everybody else is. And that's okay, because that will keep you on the straight and narrow with this. But the trouble is that in the present moment, there is not entertainment. And that's what I mean by boring. You are not being entertained.
I'm not being spoon-fed, but I'm being fed with an experience that has some sustenance to it.
How is it that you feel you're being fed?
I feel some kind of refreshment, some kind of newness, some kind of.
And you think that this is being done to you?
No, I didn't say that.
Yeah, you said I'm being fed. That implies you are the passive and receptive party to this.
It's certainly not passive.
Then what is it?
It's like I'm tuning into something that's already there. Like a radio station, it's constantly being broadcast, but unless I get the dial right on the money, I don't hear anything. I've got to constantly play with the dial to catch the broadcast. Then it's interesting. It's like, what are they saying?
But if you were in the present moment, they aren't saying anything. There is no they to say anything.
Does it matter if it's them or me or whoever?
Yes, it actually does matter. Because the they and that which is spoon feeding you and all of this are objects that are given to your consciousness. And if you put your attention on them, it's not in the present moment.
Sounds like this is tricky.
It
So
is tricky. This is one
so
of
I
those Zen things.
So I have to put the attention on myself, on my experience of the moment of now.
No. You have to experience the moment of now. There is no putting of attention. There isn't. There is no, in this case, you can say, my attention is on the present moment. My intention is to perceive the present moment, and I am in the present moment. And it's tricky because when you have done that, when you are doing that, there's not much else. Yeah, it can feel good until you have broken your conditioning Most people experience this as being tedious and boring. You may be the exception to that rule, but in the years that I've been working with people on this, this is pretty much the consensus. I can't do that. I can't sit there and just be in the present moment because it's boring. It's tedious. There's nothing going on. And the first step to being in the present moment is to break the hold of your ego that wants the entertainment that it's so addicted to.
So you're not even thinking, wow, I'm being in the present moment right now.
No, the moment you do that,
Yeah,
you've
You're
lost
out
it.
of it. Yeah. The moment you're having commentary about the experience or, overcome with feelings of wonder, gratitude, whatever it might be, you've lost it.
Yeah,
And
because
it's not
all
that,
of those are
yeah.
objects given to your consciousness.
Any
And the
of them
moment
are
you fixate on
inherently
one of
bad.
them, you're,
Yeah.
no, none of it's bad. All of it's useful. You have to learn to use all of that stuff. And that's not being in the present moment. Being in the present moment is surfing that thin slice of time that is now.
But that's still not boring. It might not be, it might not be
According
thrilling.
to whom?
Well, it might not be boring in regards to its,
You are
that
saying that
has
it's
no,
not boring
it
to
might not
you.
have any entertainment value, but it's bored, the emotion boring, that's a negative emotion, and you
Is
can't
it?
be experiencing a negative emotion while being truly in the present moment.
Well, you're right about that in the sense that just
Yeah.
like being excited, being bored in any,
Yeah. And you kind of missed my point, which is your ego will give you boring to pull you out of the present moment. It will give you all of the sensations of being bored to distract you from the present moment. It's one of its basic tricks.
I feel like that's kind of, I mean, speaking for myself, right? There's the layer in which we have, being excited about doing the practice, and then we work through that. Then we have being bored in the midst of doing the practice, and we get through that. And then it's just like a neutral state.
That's exactly the word I was thinking of.
Mm.
I was thinking not good, not bad, neutral. And there's no story behind it. There's no story. Neutral to that surfing, that continuum point of presence.
Yep. And it has no entertainment value.
Mm.
I'm wondering whether part of what feels like boredom is actually resistance to something that has a kind of intensity you're not used to.
That could very well be. And as I said, and I will say again, the ego offers up boredom as a way to distract you from the present.
It's a drive to go do something else, or notice something else, or
don't be here, be elsewhere. Go back to sleep. And if you're not experiencing that, Jonathan, more power to you. Keep doing whatever you're doing because it's working. but don't expect your experience to be the norm.
Well, I had an experience just this afternoon. I had set myself an intention to rake this patch of leaves. I knew it was going to take me about 15 minutes. And my intention was like, I'm going to rake these leaves and I'm going to maintain presence the entire time that I'm raking these leaves. And I was like, by God, I'm gonna do this. And during the raking of the leaves, I was going in and out of, I kept losing attention and getting it back and losing presence, getting it back. By the end of it, I was probably only 5 of the minutes with presence, 10 of the minutes asleep. And I asked myself, how could it be that I lost, what caused this to happen? And what occurred to me was that my intention to maintain presence while raking the leaves kept on getting sidetracked into this alternate aim, which was rake the leaves. And raking, the intention to rake the leaves is a very different intention to the intention of maintaining presence while raking the leaves. I fell back into the regular, I'm going to rake the leaves mode.
Okay, and what does that teach you? What do you learn from that? It's a very good example. I just want to see where it's going for you.
I've got to be very clear in my intention and not confuse it with the normal set of intentions that I've been following my whole life, which is I'm going to do this task because I'm going to get a benefit out of it. It'll clean up the yard, or the dishes will get washed, or I'll make the sandwich. Those kind of intentions won't work for me. They'll produce, I mean, I'll be able to exist in daily life and get things done, but it's a very different set of intentions to, I want to be here now and stay here now when I find myself here now.
Okay. And what would you say the main difference is?
The main difference is in the example of I want to rake the leaves, my desire is to rake the leaves. In the second intention, I want to be here now, it's because I want to experience that moment, the sensation, the feeling of presence. They're two very different wants.
Okay. Can you make them into one desire, one intention?
It's possible, yes. But I would have to continually, oh, this was the other thing that ties into this moment of now. I have to continually reset the intention to be present every 2 or 3 seconds.
Exactly. Until you learn how to hold that intention across the frame of time where the present moment exists, every time what is now becomes then, you have to have that intention again. The trick is to continue the intention through that shift. I usually think of it as, because I'm old and I used to work, making movies and stuff, I think of it as film, a nice 35 millimeter or 70 millimeter film strip. and it's flashing images at me at 30 frames per second or whatever it is. And my mind can be following one frame where it needs to be on this frame. And I used to do that when I was editing, right? Because when you're editing the old film stock, you have to find the right frame, stop it on that frame, cut it, splice in another piece, and then send it on its way. And if you get caught in the movie that you're watching, you miss where you need to do the edit. So think about what it would be like if you could hold your intention through all of those frames that are coming. Every frame that involves raking the leaves, you have the attention to be present. What would that be like? And the intention is continuous rather than reset.
The density of experience would be very intense and
Yes.
present.
Yeah. A lot of people can't stand that much intensity for more than a second or two. That takes practice. And one of the ways that your ego protects you from that intensity is by going, this is boring. They might go, this is tedious. They could go, I'm pissed that I have to rake these leaves, but it will be something that pulls you away from that present moment.
Or
And
this
yet,
is too much. Yeah.
Yeah, or this is too much, whatever. And it can be doing anything. I am sure that Cherie has stories of her doing body work on somebody and being in that continuous intention and continuous attention that creates presence. And probably stories where that just didn't happen.
Yeah.
Because anytime you're doing something physical like that, it can be a tool for that. Raking leaves is a great example. If you were a Buddhist, especially a Theravadan Buddhist, you'd be raking leaves all the time, going raking, 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 just holding that one thought and nothing else. I bet you Nancy has experiences doing calligraphy that are very much the same. Being present to the moment of the pen and paper and ink all coming together versus those times when it just ain't happening.
Less than you might think, but I'm beginning to wonder whether for me, the extent to which I can do presence is in bursts that are much shorter than 1 second. So I'm going
Could be.
in and out of it pretty fast.
Yeah, a lot of people will do that. 3 seconds is an average that scientists came up with, and we all know about averages.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've had people talk to me as though they thought I was in a deep meditative state while I was doing calligraphy. And I know what was going on. I was worrying about money. So, I'm doing something, or my mind is working on 2 tracks and one of them is present or something.
Yeah, it would be interesting to examine that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing with it while we've been talking, and a second seems like an awfully long time. I don't think I stayed focused for a whole second.
It is. It kind of feels like a long time, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it takes practice. It takes real practice to stay present for any length of time. I remember years ago, one of my teachers said, if you were to stay continuously present for 5 minutes, you'd be the Buddha.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about that and went, that may be true because I've never been present for 5 minutes at a stretch.
Yeah, Cherie, did you have a thought?
I was working today on someone's body and I felt it was like a collection of moments. So when you say a continuum, that doesn't happen, but there's a collection of using all the senses. So the body is telling me something that the person hasn't spoken of, but I know where to go just on that feeling. And you can't feel that unless you're present. And I couldn't describe it to the person as the usual way. I said, I just know that's where I have to go. I just know that's the amount of pressure I should apply. I just know that it has to be in this direction because I'm keeping myself open. And if I'm thinking good, bad, and all these different things, boring, not boring, I actually get thrilled by that sensation of being in that moment, and the body's telling me, and I'm following that will. I'm not following my will to try and say, you need this amount of pressure and this amount of technique, and 5 minutes, then we go on to the next one. It doesn't even have time in it, because sometimes I've looked at the clock, I think, oh, damn, I've only been working for 5 minutes and this particular problem's resolved. I go, okay, so what else is there? So when I'm present and it's a collection of moments, it's like you let yourself in and it just flows. There's that flow thing that we're talking about. But I don't, because someone said to me, I don't know how you do that and not get bored. And I said, it's actually very rich. But I'm not looking for good, bad, or anything. I'm just feeling what is there. What's the presentation? And then when it's done, it's done. It's not something I can restrict into a certain time frame. So I don't know how that works with what you're trying to describe, Jonathan, but it's not always boring because I'm in that moment, in that flow. Does that help?
It's nodding his head. Yeah.
Just be there. Just be there. And the ego will be trying to make something of it, but it's not magical. That's the other thing, because people go, oh, you're magic. I said, no, I'm not magic. I'm just there. Just there. I'm just listening. I'm just listening with all my being, not just my hands. There's a whole thing that goes with it. If you're really present with that human, that's how I would describe it.
Yeah.
It's like describing love. Describe that.
Yeah. I mean, I experienced a little bit of that yesterday. We had an appointment in San Francisco yesterday, and I was talking to I had like a one-on-one with a seamstress, and there have been times where I had like a third fitting for this occasion, and previous time I went, I found myself just so bound up with tension, and it was like she could feel it. I knew she could feel it, and it was affecting how we were communicating. Whereas this time, I could tell that I was walking in with a different energy, and I felt like, she and I are very similar, so we read each other well. And she was all bundled up, and I could tell it was because she's cold. Like, the weather now is cold, and I know that she works with her hands, and I could tell that that's a drain on her body when it's cold. And it was just like we had this flowing rapport because we were able to be present with one another, and we were just cracking jokes that didn't, the words didn't need to be finished because we understood what we were saying to one another. Yeah. And you can't, at least for me, that flow, when it's real, I mean, you can't force that. It's a matter of being present. Yeah.
So, Jonathan, have we reached a consensus?
Yeah, I relate to what everyone's been saying. But I have to say it to myself in my own words.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That's what makes you so fun. If you
It
said
helps
it,
everyone.
yeah, if you said it in my words, I'd be bored.
Yeah. So, I mean, this topic of presence is, we've discussed it multiple times, and people may find it useful to go back to our attention, intention, presence video and review that as an adjunct to this conversation. But, man, where was I going with that? Well, I know that the more ways we describe a thing, if we get at the core of it together, the more easy it is for others to grasp. And I think where I was going with this was, this is a hard topic to discuss because in a way it is very simple. And yet it's so hard to discuss in words so that we can hone in on it and know what it is, especially if we're not that familiar with that experience in a more tangible way. How do you teach it? And it helps having multiple voices to help teach that. What were you going to say, Jonathan?
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Noor. And when I do my contrarian thing, I hope that the reason is I'm trying to stimulate you to say the same thing in a different way, not to oppose them for the sake of opposition.
Yeah, well, I think you prompted a discussion that was able to get at this quality of neutrality, and I don't know how easily it would have been directed that way without a discussion about this tension between opposites and where that middle ground is, where the emotional tethers are not so involved. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and just remember, I'm not always right. You're not always right. Nor is always right.
It's a privilege. What can I say? Yeah. So thanks everyone. Do you have any more details you'd like to share, Mushtaq, or any
Yeah,
practices?
there are a couple of other things we haven't
Yeah.
even talked about. So when we talked about attention, we talked about it as having 3 dimensions. When we talked about intention, we talked about it as having 2 dimensions, like a field phenomena. Presence has 1 dimension. It's like a single point. And that makes it interesting. There is only, of the 9 precepts, there's only 1 that relates to presence, and that's yad kag, which means remembrance. And you can hear about that in the talk that we did on that,
Yeah,
if you
that's in
get
our
interested. Yeah.
9 precepts of the Quadrigan list playlist.
Now, only when you have all 3 of these together, when you have your attention, your intention, and your presence all working, are you in a position to, as Gurdjieff said, create a soul. It's, I don't really have language that I am happy with for talking about this. I think creating a soul is the wrong way to talk about it, but I don't have a better way at the moment.
It's
We
kind of
will
a
work on this.
traditional way.
Yeah, it's a
isn't it?
traditional way. Yeah,
Yeah.
Gurdjieff spent a lot of time talking about this, and he was going for the shock value. He loved to say to people, You think you got a soul? You ain't got a soul.
You
You're
have
going to
no
die and you're just
soul.
going to dissolve into the ethers.
Mm.
But you could build a soul if you wanted to. He would say something along those lines. And when you have your attention, your intention, and your presence all working, all balanced with each other, each of the dimensions of them in harmony, as it were, then you are creating an energy. And this energy is specific to creating what, for lack of a better word, even though this is completely imprecise, the four souls of the human being. The four souls in English, it's the corporal soul, the moving soul, the authoritative soul, and the spiritual soul. There's Arabic words for them. The first is Jismani Ruh, Sehrani Ruh, Sultani Ruh, and Ruhani Ruh. So that's the Arabic terms for those who want them.
Yeah, but don't worry about it too much if that's not.
Yeah, it being able to say the Arabic words will not help you get a soul any quicker.
Sorry.
Yes. But it will tell you a little bit more about them than the English does. And at some point we might delve into that, because I think we need to talk about the four souls and their development at some point in the very near future. We will probably throw them on an Enneagram.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
Make a note.
Make a note. And you can't do this. You cannot build your souls without a body. Body is absolutely essential to this. So that's pretty much what I have to say about this tonight.
Yeah. Kind of on the low key side of the talk spectrum, but I think we had a really good array of input from people and their experiences. And
yeah, next time I'll put on my Southern preacher hat and I will extol at you and stuff.
Yeah, we've been pretty busy, so there may be a little bit of fatigue present here, and we are all human beings, so we get to have that, right?
Yeah,
And
whether we like it or not.
exactly, yeah. So thank you, everyone. Do we have any last questions or thoughts? Shari's good. How about you, Jonathan? You're good. Nancy, how about you?
Oh, it made me realize that I had no idea what you meant by presence.
Presents, really? Wow.
Yeah, because the usual English usage is more like a sort of a dignified charisma.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm glad you mentioned that, but that is not obviously.
It's interesting because that can be a side effect of what we're talking about, and often is, but it is not the central core of it.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. And that's something we're contemplating, is the relationship between those two definitions of the term. So thank you for mentioning that. Any other thoughts, Nancy?
No, that's it.
Well, thanks.
Welcome.
Hind, how about you?
Well, maybe I have a thought. Maybe it can help there. Mustafa said the time is about 1.5 and 3 seconds.
You're 3,
It's almost the time for an inhale and exhale, complete inhale and exhale.
Yeah.
So it's like the presence is being aware of that moment of inhaling and exhaling.
I think you may be onto something there.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we can alter the rate of breathing intentionally, but if we're just kind of allowing it to be as it already is, the breath that is, then
Yeah.
it may naturally fall into that kind of groove. Yeah. So that's a good observation as well. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right,
All right.
anything else?
Well, I'm switching us back to Brady Bunch mode, so
Brady
we can
Bunch
all say
mode.
goodbye.
Yeah, we can wave to each other, wave to everyone watching on the
Yeah.
replay.
Have
Bye.
fun.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Enjoy. We
everyone.
try. Hopefully, we didn't bore you too badly. But if we did,
Oh,
consider what that means.
Yeah, something to be said about that. All right, take care, everyone. See you
Take care,
next
folks. Bye.